Now we welcome to the stage Leah, whose talk is a Globetrotter in a circular economy.
So, a Globetrotter living in a circular economy. Now, who do we call Globetrotters? Globetrotters are people that travels widely. And I'm sure most of you guys in this room have been a Globetrotter at one point in your life. In the context of my project, I look at a Globetrotter that travels and stays at one place in a longer period of time. Specifically, I look at international students like myself. As a Globetrotter, I would want to travel with the most minimum amount of items possible, but I would also want to have a complete set of essential items with me. So what I would do is whenever I get to a new place, I would buy this new set of essential items, use them for a specific amount of time, and I will later then dispose them away. And this is not a way to live in a circular economy. A circular economy disengages economic activity from the consumption of restricted resources. It also pushes the effort towards designing waste out of the system. There are three, according to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, shifting from a circular economy would reduce the emission of carbon dioxide by half by the year 2030. And this statement itself shows that shifting to a circular economy would bring great change to the environment. Now, circular economy have three main ways. One is design out waste and pollution. Two, to keep products and materials in use. And three, to regenerate the natural system. Now, how could we be a Globetrotter and still live in a circular economy? Maybe if a Globetrotter could live in a community that shares these essential items, maybe less item would need to be bought and less item would later be then thrown away. But what are the items that these Globetrotters would be sharing and how they share this item? Looking for answers, I started looking at the context of items within my room. I started thinking about items that I would share and items that I would not share. Items in the circle being the items that I wouldn't share, and those are the specific reasons. Besides sharing items, I realized that I would also be sharing spaces. I then look at items and spaces within the context of shared houses that I am currently in. The green one being the items and spaces of mine, and the red one being the items and spaces of my housemate. I then map out the items and the spaces that we share, when I realized that the more we share, the more we actually have. While categorizing the items that we would share and not share, I realized that we would actually share a lot of our items. We would also not mind using items that were handed down to us by other Globetrotters. I remember browsing through a Facebook page called Malaysian Student Goods Exchange. These Facebook pages were set up by Malaysian students who came to London to study. This is where Globetrotters traveling from Malaysia would look for items that are cheap and would be good use of them, and students that are traveling back to Malaysia would put out the items that they didn't want to bring back home for sale. I realized that this sharing and reusing items between a community of Globetrotters has always been a thing. Now what it needs is a proper platform. And this is when I came with the idea of the Momentarily box. It is an app where Globetrotters could come in and rent specific set of items for a specific period of time. The way the app works is that you would just have to register, customize your own Momentarily box, confirm your order, pay the renting fees, check out, and the box will be on its way. There are already existing websites that offers a similar thing to the Momentarily box. The difference is that with this existing website, you would still be buying these items, but with the Momentarily box, you would be renting them. To understand how the Momentarily box work, we would look at these four components and their relationship with each other. To understand this relationship, we will look at a blender as an example. So blender is manufactured by the manufacturer, where it has different components that are supplied by different suppliers. After the blender is being manufactured, it will then be sent to the Momentarily box HQ, when then the blender will be sent to the Globetrotters according to the requests that have been made. Now, after the Globetrotters have been using the blender for the specific period of time, it will then send back the blender to the HQ. The HQ will then decide if the blender is still in good use to be rent out again. If it is, the cycle will continue. But if the blender is not in a good condition to be rent out again, it will then be sent back to the manufacturer, where it will be assessed, cleaned, or refurbished so that the cycle will continue. However, if the blender is not in a condition to be refurbished anymore, the components within the blender will then be broken down and sent back to the specific suppliers, so that the suppliers will then be able to use that broken down components to make new components so that a new blender could then be manufactured. I then think about how this app could manifest itself spatially. Spatially, the momentary box would be made of mini hubs that would attach themselves to student halls, and a hive that would sit on an independent side which acts as a control center. The momentarily box promotes a way of life where people would only be living with time-specific items. It will also create a new community of Globetrotters. And these Globetrotters could be aware of existing Globetrotters around them through the app. And through the app as well, they would be able to request to borrow items from other Globetrotters. I then think about how I would contextualize the app. I thought about contextualizing the momentarily box hub in Kauli. Now, Kauli is mainly residential and industrial area. It has 3 different student halls where I could test the idea of the mini hub, and 3 different possible sites that I could test the idea of the hive. The mini hub would attach itself to the complex of a student hall. So one student hall would have multiple mini hubs attaching to it. The mini hub stores specific set of items that would be essential to students. Now there would come one point in time where the students that have a momentarily box would realize that they would need items that they don't have in their momentarily box. And this is where the mini hub would come in handy. So let's say if one day Aline needs a blender and the blender is not what she has in her momentarily box. So she would just have to go on the app, request to have a blender for the night, and the mini hub would then process the request, send a drone to send the blender to Aline's student hall. And then continue to think about how the mini hub could be designed architecturally. I look at how the hub would have an architecture of its own, where it would be inhabited by robots which will work autonomously in delivering the function of the hub. Moving forward, I thought about how the hive would be spatially. So the difference between the hive and the hub is that the hub would be delivering time-specific items, while the hive will be delivering a set of items in the form of momentarily box, which will be ordered in advance by the Globetrotters themselves. I thought about the hive to be made out of components of cells, which these cells would have its own specific function. So the upper portion of the hive would be the storage and receiving cells that would work with the manufacturer. And the middle portion of the hive would be where the control center is. It would be where the drones would fly in and out of the hive, and where the items from the manufacturer would then be distributed to different boxes accordingly. The lowest portion of the hive would be where the hive gets more communal. It will have different pods where the Globetrotters could interact with. For example, one of the pods would be where Globetrotters could come in, browse for items that they want, order and collect on the spot. The open spaces below the hive would also be a space where the Globetrotters could interact with each other. The hive would be a starting point of this new community of Globetrotters, Globetrotters that live in a circular environment.